Hello there! In this video, I'm going to slowly guide you through this entire unit. It's actually a re-upload of a live stream that I made in the run-up to the 2025 exams. But you can follow along with me as I spend a few hours filling in this A3 poster. As it's a live stream, I respond to questions given to me by hundreds of real students as they prepare for their exams. I have 7 of these live streams that I've re-uploaded, and over the course of this year, I'm going to host the remaining live streams. And re-record the old ones so you've got a chance to take part. If you want to join me, then please subscribe so you get notified when I announce one of these live streams. It would also be great if you could subscribe because I just hit 94,000 subscribers. So pretty close to that 100k milestone. So if you're finding my stuff useful and want a free way to help out the channel, that would be amazing. Now, I don't do sponsorships for things like VPNs, but the other things I make are entirely focused on helping you get the best out of your A-level. And selling all these things helps you make the free content on YouTube. You can get this poster and posters for every unit, both completed and filled in as digital files and now as a revision book. You could also follow along with each of my main videos with worksheets. These are designed to give you an active role and make the information sticky. I also have an app for you to test yourself, and I let you use all the paper 1 for free without ads before you decide if it's worth unlocking papers 2 and 3. Altogether, it's thousands of pre-made quiz questions and flashcards. And I have over 17 hours of exam question walkthroughs, as well as lots of other resources over on Patreon. And starting now, I'm going to be doing an exam question focused live stream most weeks that are exclusive to my Patreon supporters. Thank you for listening to all of that. Let's get started. So the multi-store model of memory, I'll just start you off so that those of you writing down can get started. So we've got Atkinson and Schifrin. This is a theoretical cognitive model, so you'll know that from approaches of how the memory system processes information. So a little bit of a in a nutshell, what is the multi-stored model of memory? That's what it is. Okay, let's go for the rest of you who are typing in the chat. What is the first section, the first storage unit of the multi-store model? Okay, Kira's getting straight in there with sensory register. Now I'd like you to type out for me a description. Very good. Everyone's getting in there of the sensory register. So tell me a few things about it. If we're going to, let's say we got like 3 points, 2 points description, what are we going to include? So you've got best knitting, drawing attention from the senses, or receiving raw sense impressions is what we want to say. Encode all 5 senses by modality specific, huge capacity. Capacity very large, duration 250 milliseconds, code and modality specific from raw, getting all 3 of them in there. Yeah. So one thing to note on the multi-store model of memory that's different than the working memory model, and I don't know how many of you have picked it up. In the spec, it says the coding capacity and duration of each store. So you can be asked about the coding capacity and duration of sensory register, short-term memory, and long-term memory. When it comes to the working memory model, we won't be doing that because the spec says features of the store, and I think it was coding and duration, I want to say. So we don't actually need to do the coding capacity and duration of every single store. So let's go with revealing sensory register, because you guys have smashed that. Receives raw sense impressions, attention, passes to information to short-term memory. So the process of how information leaves the system is attention. The coding is modality specific, which means it's a range of different codings depending on the sense. There are terms for it, but we don't need to know them. Capacity, we can just say that's very, very large, because you've got to think it's like all sense impressions in any given moment. The duration is 250 milliseconds. That's for vision. Obviously, each of them have a different duration. It's kind of very interesting how the brain is able to take different sensory inputs like sound and vision, which have different processing speeds, and make it seem like it's all happening at the same time. It's a little bit of a mental trick. Okay. Midrefua, read the little bar at the bottom of the screen. That should tell you how to do it. Quarter second. Yeah, that's fine. Honestly, I'd say approximately 250 milliseconds because each of them have a different speed. Okay. Oh, great, Olivia. I'm really happy that this is working out for you. It's a lot of my life. let's go for short-term memory, everyone. Pop in what is going on with short-term memory. Give me a little description. Oh, Grace is like ready with the answer. I reckon Grace had typed that up and then was like, I'm going to press enter when he says it. But that was smart. Short-term memory capacity, 7 plus or minus 2. All right, great. Hey, I'm not against it. So receives information from central register and long-term memory, so retrieval. So we get information into the short-term memory store so we can use it. That process is retrieval. Maintenance rehearsal is keeping information in short-term memory. I didn't add that to the model because some models don't have that little arrow looping around. I know I did it myself sometimes. But we do want to talk about maintenance rehearsal. But rehearsal is also an element of moving from short-term memory to long-term memory as well. Rehearsal passes information into long-term memory, so information is lost. And we've got two terms there as well. Displacement, so this is new information moving into short-term memory, pushing old stuff out because we've got that limited capacity, or decay, just over time, if we're not using the information, if we're not using that maintenance rehearsal, we'll just lose it. Coding is acoustic, and duration is 18 to 30 seconds. Okay. And the capacity is 7 plus or minus 2 items, which we'll come to later in the evaluations. We're gonna have to do a lot of evaluations here. I'm sure you're aware, because there's been questions which is like how has like capacity in the short-term memory store been duration in the short-term memory store being studied, and you had to give details. There's going to be more evaluations in this section than the rest of memory, with the other sections of memory. But we'll get through it. All right, let's go. Give me a long-term memory, everybody. Yeah, a bunch of you now have got the trick of waiting for it. I like that because you can give a little bit more information. And let's carry on with that, actually. It's well done, Grace, for thinking of this, because all of you can see how much you can get in. Polarics, first one in. Long-term info is passed on to short-term memory through rehearsal. It encodes information semantically, linking meanings. It's got a capacity, which is potentially limited, and duration, which is also potentially unlimited. Very good. Let's see if anyone's got any different. All of you quite similar. A few of you dipping into the evaluations there. All right. Let me reveal what I've put, and you can write it up if you've got it. I don't think there's anything extra there that we didn't just pick up from the chat. Theoretically unlimited. We haven't found a limit. There's an element that forgotten info might not actually be forgotten. It might just be inaccessible, because we can kind of link that a little bit to explanations of forgetting. Okay. I think we're good. Let's go into the evaluations then, as you guys are ready. I would like, first of all, before we go into the coding capacity and duration, tell me how we know, what piece of theory and research shows us that the short-term memory store and the long-term memory store are certainly separate. Yeah, Kitty is in there. And Hosanna managed to get a full description there. Participants are asked to recall word lists in any order. Recall was much stronger for words at the end and the start. I'll just try to explain that a little bit before I go any further. So fundamentally, what we're trying to do when we're evaluating the multi-store model of memory, we're saying, is this true? Is it valid to say that there is a separate store for short-term memory, that's just a few seconds old, a long-term memories that are up to a lifetime? Is it true that that's the case? The primacy and recency effect seems to indicate it. If you get people to remember a long list of words, then it seems to be their better recall for the ones at the start and the ones at the end. And the ones in the middle seem to get a little lost. And the argument for this is, I'm not sure how much I agree with it, honestly, but the argument is the words at the start of the list have be moved into long-term memory store. The words in the middle were displaced by the words at the end, and the words at the end are still in the short-term memory store. So the spike at the beginning at the end shows the evidence of these different stores. Do I like it? Yeah. Well, it's an evaluation that appears on the mark scheme a lot. So yeah, fine. So let's go. Yeah, same thing. Murdoch, Glasner, same thing. Go for Murdoch if that's what you're learning. Same with Jacobs and Miller. Some people work on the same area. We're now going to go into capacity and duration of the sensory register. So tell me who that was, and if you can, tell me a little bit of detail. It's up to you. Nice. Okay. So most of you good. We have got Spearling is what we're after. So not seen a question yet where this would be asked directly, but because I've seen examples of elements of the short-term and long-term memory store being asked directly, you could potentially be asked about the sensory register, the capacity and duration. I can't imagine any way of asking about the coding, but the capacity and duration could be asked, and this one covers both of them. So we've got Spearling, recall of a random row of a 12-letter grid with 75%. Suggests all rows are in the sensory register, so large capacity, but all 12 could not be recalled as memory faded too quickly, so a short duration. Oh no, my whiteboard fell over. Okay. So what are we talking about here? Just to try to explain it, I've just read that out and you're not understanding it. Short-term memory store, we're fairly confident that the capacity is 7 plus or minus 2 items. So you're tapping out at around about 9 items. Now, the grid that Spearling flashed up was 12 items, so beyond the capacity of the short-term memory store. So if it's all flashed up for a very, very brief moment, and then you're asked which row to read out a row, and you can be accurate because it's disappeared before you know which row is called out, then that means that you were able to hold in the sensory register at least more than 9 items. So it must be bigger than the short-term memory store. But then add on all the other elements like taste, touch, smell, hearing, and you know, you can definitely see more in your peripheral vision as well. So it's probably much larger than just a 12-letter grid. So that's the evidence that the sensory register storage is larger than the short-term memory store, at least. But obviously, the short-term memory store, you can hold it for 18 to 30 seconds. You can only hold the sensory register for like milliseconds, or maybe a second or so, because when asked, they can get a row out and explain a row, but you couldn't say all 12 of the things that were in the grid. Even though they were in sensory register, you couldn't say them fast enough before the memory fades. So it suggests that our duration of that sensory register is very short. So if you didn't already have Spearling, make sure you've got that ready to go. Let's go for the next one. Give me the coding for short-term memory and long-term memory. So another research study which does 2 for us. Okay, we got badly is correct. 4 word groups: acoustic, long-term memory, semantic. Okay, we're good. So we have badly as you're right. So let's write this in. It's a big, it's a complex study of a lot of moving parts, but let's just try and say it as simply as we can. 4 word list, 4 word lists of 10 words. Acoustically similar and dissimilar, semantically similar and dissimilar. Those are our 4 word lists. And what we're finding is immediate recall, which is testing short-term memory, was worse for acoustically similar words. And recall after 20 minutes was worse for semantically similar. Now, it's a bit complex to say, well, what is that showing? But fundamentally, we can say what that shows is long-term memory is stored semantically and short-term memory is stored acoustically. And the argument is these acoustically similar words are getting kind of confused in the short-term memory store, which is suggesting that the short-term memory store is kind of organized acoustically. And for long-term memory, the semantically similar words are getting confused. Okay, so good. Let's go for the capacity of the short-term memory store. I know there's two different versions of this. Give me either one you want. Yeah, sometimes a lot of psychology and writing it down in the exam is an effort in trying to simplify what you're saying and being clear without losing too much information because you're on a time limit. Sometimes, if you're given too much information, it can be, sometimes you can know too much about stuff. Okay, so we're not on Peterson yet, but we got Miller, Jacobs, very, very similar perspective. Okay. Yeah, I think I know there's Miller and Jacobs. I feel like historically, Jacobs kind of pipped Miller to the post, as far as I'm aware. So I've gone that, but don't worry if you said Miller. But yeah, I think they're finding very similar things. So Jacobs' recall of lists of letters average 7. I have to change that on the poster. Repeated letters twice. 9 for numbers. Short-term capacity 7 plus or minus 2, and it can be improved by chunking. I think it was Miller who literally came up with the 7 plus or minus 2, but it's a similar finding. Okay, let's go. And I think some of you have jumped the gun a little bit there. Let's go duration short-term memory. Nice little summary there from Polly. Peterson, 18 to 30 seconds, trigrams, interference task. That was neat. I was tempted to do the entire poster that succinctly. It would be interesting to see if you could fit the entirety of unit 1 of paper 1 onto one sheet of A3 if you were as succinct as Polly was then, just saying Peterson, 18 to 30 seconds, trigrams, interference task, just all the key terms just chunked together and none of the other filler words. I reckon you could probably get it on one sheet of A3, but maybe that's a challenge for me for next year, I think. Okay, so I'll reveal what I've put in, which is a few more words. So Peterson, recall of 3-letter trigrams after counting backwards as interference task to stop maintenance rehearsal. So that's why we've got that interference task. So if we just got that 3-letter trigram, we can just keep it in our short-term memory forever, can't we? We just keep repeating it. And then the finding or found was less than 10% recall after 18 seconds. And then the argument is 18 to 30 seconds. So yeah, taps out at 30 seconds, basically is all over at that point. So we've got next the capacity of long-term memory. Capacity of long-term memory. I do wonder if other people have got different capacities of long-term memory studies than I have, because I don't see it as commonly. Yeah, so not duration, capacity. Yeah, people get a little confused here between capacity and duration. So it's Wagner is the one that I use for capacity. How much can you fit in? And there is, there's going to be some variation on this between people, but and also it's hard to test the absolute capacity. I know there's some people who remember pi to ridiculous levels of detail and so many cards as well. So probably more impressive than Wagner, who does 2,400 events. So had a diary over 6 years, filled it in with events that happened in their life, and then was tested on this after 6 years. And the stuff that had happened a year ago, they were 75% accurate with the recall, and even after 5 years since starting the diary, when questioned on those events, was 45% accurate. Now, that's not to say they had forgotten the rest of it, but it does show that there's a large capacity there available for Wagner. Maybe with a little hint or a cue, Wagner would probably be able to remember a lot of the other things that was in there. Yeah, I'm not sure if Barrack is great for capacity, because I don't know, like, you don't have that many school friends, although you could argue that you know a lot of people throughout your lifetime, but I don't know. If you guys have learned Barrack for both, can you explain to me how you're arguing that Barrack is showing capacity? I'm just revealing this because some of you have put in the chat already. So Barrack found recall of school friends, so were tested up to 48 years later, and we've got a high recall of friends' names, so 8% recall even after 48 years. Yeah, I mean, the only way I would suggest using Barrack for both, which you could, is to suggest that over the course of a lifetime, many names would be learnt. So an 8% recall after 48 years suggests that all of the names that you learn in between are still on there as well. I don't know if I learned 2,400 names. Maybe. So, I don't know. I'm good with it. I'm good with it. I think if I read it, I'd be happy seeing it as long as it was explained why you're using Barrack. Because it's capacity, you're talking about a large amount of information shown that's in there. Let's go for just some critical evaluations. So we've done the research evaluations. If you've got the multi-tool model in there as your AO1, and then I'll just blast in a bunch of research studies to show that the principles of the multi-tool model are supported by evidence. You don't have to use all of them, but you might need a particular one for a particular question. So I just kind of want some generic evaluations now. Like, what are problems with and critical evaluation? We've got so much positive evaluations because of all the research. I don't want any more positive. Well, I definitely think Barrack is more duration because of that long time period, 48 years, testing after 48 years. You can get away with capacity, as I said, but I don't think you do duration. I don't think it's not duration. Okay, we've got a few there. I'm not jumping in for case studies at this point. I'm going to talk more about maybe the research a little bit, first of all. So studies on memory often use artificial tasks, brackets low mundane realism, so findings don't generalize to real life. So just a little warning on this. Generic evaluation, it's good. Let's shape it to the question, though. If you have done the multi-tool model essay and you've used, say, the Baddeley coding study as your research evidence, what you want to say is studies on memory often use artificial tasks, such as Baddeley asking participants to memorize word lists. Memorizing random word lists is not a task that we do in day-to-day life. We're more likely to try to remember where we left our keys. Therefore, findings don't generalize to real-life memory. So I hope that helps people just think a moment that a generic evaluation that is using just key terminology but doesn't link to what you've already said in the essay isn't so valuable. But we can manipulate it, we can edit it, and we can make it about that essay. And that's a really, 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 really big difference in how good your essay is. But that's just a little twist. Otherwise, what you can do, you can just kind of copy and paste the same evaluation to every single essay and they'll all sound the same. And, it's just so obvious that a student doesn't really know what they're talking about. They're just using a generic evaluation and putting it into every essay that it's not really very credit worthy. So keep that in mind. Even though on the poster I'm trying to summarize it. So we are different types of long-term memory. So we've got one long-term memory store in the WeStore model, but clearly there's different types. So you can go into that in a little bit more detail and pull it apart. I wouldn't do a massive essay on it. Like, just use your knowledge from types of long-term memory. And the working memory model is a more detailed explanation of the short-term memory store. The capacity of the short-term memory is not fixed, as it is suggested by the multi-store model. So over the course of of someone getting older, they can lose the capacity of short-term memory store, and with practice you can increase it. So the idea of short-term memory stores is very fixed, 7 plus or minus 2, and that doesn't seem to be the case. Probably end up getting to eyewitness testimony stuff in probably about an hour, so maybe jump off to somewhere else if you just want on that bit. Okay, we are done, everyone, with the multi-store model of memory. We are going to go on to types of long-term memory. So let me just say, types of long-term memory just basically means storage of memory over a long period of time. 3 types. Give me the names of all 3 types, please. Okay, semantic, episodic, and procedural. Good. We are going to start off with episodic, everyone. Please give me as many little bits of information about episodic as you can. We've got time-stamped, personal. Another word we can say is autobiographical rather than just personal. Explicit, declarative, attached to emotions. We can have attached to emotions. We can also say the strength of the memory is linked to the emotion felt at the time of encoding. A conscious effort from Alima. That's good. Okay, I think we are good there. I think the chat has picked up all the elements that I'd like. So episodic experiences and events is what these memories are of. So time-stamped, so what that means is stored with a reference of time and place. When we think about it, we can kind of feel how long ago it was, and we are mentally somewhere when we think about those memories. So, you think about, like, say, a birthday party. You can feel if you kind of feel how long ago it was, and you can kind of mentally see yourself back in that place. Declarative means you can talk about it, and explicit means that we can think about it consciously. Autobiographical means it's about yourself. And another element is the strength is influenced by emotion felt. We could say if you wanted, but it's not. We've got so many other things to talk about. Don't worry about it too much. We can say that it is linked to areas of the brain like the hippocampus and the prefrontal cortex. You get someone in a brain scanner, you get to do we call a episodic long-term memory. That's where you can maybe see some things light up, but I really wouldn't worry about that bit because there's so much else to talk about. Let's go for semantic. Tell me everything you can, just a few things about semantic. Okay, so we have semantic is objective facts, not time camped. Last run for distortion or forgetting, then episodic. That's good. Excellent. Episodic becomes semantic over time. Zakia, that's great. There we go. Let's reveal what I've put down here. So facts, meanings, and knowledge. So we've got declarative, or otherwise known as, declarative means you can talk about it. Explicit, meaning you're aware of it, as the same as episodic. The strength of it depends on processing depth. The longer lasting, it's longer lasting than episodic. It's not time stamped, so we're not aware of when we learn a fact. We just know that we know it. Episodic tends to become semantic over time. So yeah, you might remember a classroom when you're very young. You would have been in a classroom when you were told like the capital city of France is Paris, but now you don't remember being in that classroom, but you do remember the fact. So the episodic becomes semantic over time. And we've got associated the frontal cortex. I think I got these from a marketing a while ago, like particular areas of the brain that it's linked to. I think I'm going to take those bits out because I think that's about where we see processing, not storage. And obviously the Torving study kind of counters it a little bit. So I might actually take those bits out when I upload the poster again. Let's go, everyone, for procedural. All right, we got non-declarative, so you can't talk about it. Implicit is a great term to use, Flavor, so that's the opposite of explicit. Bengal memory of motor skills, difficult to forget, not declarative. Got muscle memory from Polly. All right. So procedural. Procedural is unconscious memories of skills, so like riding a bike. Often learned in childhood. Non-declarative or implicit. So can't put into words or recall consciously. More resistant to forgetting than episodic or semantic, and associated with the motor cortex and cerebellum. I think I'll keep that bit in actually, because that is very true and it doesn't conflict with the evaluation I'm about to use. So speaking of evaluations though, tell me about Clive Waring, everyone. Clive Waring is the evaluation to do in this. And actually, I'm actually really sad about, of all the things that are coming out of the spec next year, I'm going to miss Tapped to Long-Term Memory the mostly because I used to love talking about Clive and showing the little documentary of him, and I won't be able to do that anymore. Okay, still has procedural memory. Remembers procedural, not semantic. Got a criticism there about lacking population validity. I'll go into that as well in a sec. Okay. I'm going to go into this in a little detail. I reckon this should be like the fundamental evaluation that you're going to want to do if you're writing about this. Because the case of Clive Waring, I feel very clearly separates all three of them out if you can explain it well enough. Polarix, you can at the end, yeah. So here's a Clive Waring one. So Clive Waring has two types of amnesia. He has retrograde and anterograde amnesia. So that means he can't remember his past or make new memories. So he's probably one of the most amnesic people to ever live. No, I don't know about that, but well, maybe. So he can't remember events. So he can't. If you ask him to think back to his wedding, he can't mentally place himself back at his wedding, which is obviously an episodic memory. But he knows he's married, so that straight away is showing a distinction between episodic memory and semantic memory. He can do one, but not the other when it's coming to his past. He can play the piano. So he obviously learned the piano before his brain damage. So the brain damage didn't affect his ability to access those memories. So that suggests that procedural is different than episodic because he can't remember past episodic memories, can use procedural skills. Also, this anterior grade amnesia, this ability to make new memories, he can't make new semantic or episodic memories. So they're the same in that way. He can't make new semantic or episodic memories. So you tell him a new fact, it's gone. But he can make new procedural memories. So for those two elements, you've separated semantic and episodic because you can do one but not the other when it comes to recall. And then we can separate semantic from procedural with that second element, that he can learn new skills, but he can't take on new semantic memories. So all three of them, based on Clive Waring, seem to be separate processes that use different brain structures or pathways. So hopefully that helps really break apart the three of them. And then, as a bunch of you have mentioned already, this is an idiographic study. We can always criticize idiographic studies because we might not be able to generalize the findings from Clive to the wider population. I've written this quite generically, but you want to tidy it up a little bit and add some elements to it. So Clive Waring has severe brain damage. We're not fully aware of the extent of the brain damage. It could be other areas of the brain are damaged in ways that we don't quite understand that might be affecting his abilities or in some way. It's just one person. Now, when you watch the videos, it's so extreme. Some of my students often doubt that he's actually, how's it even possible? I definitely think Clive has got the amnesia that he has. But there might be some elements of confidence or whatever about him talking about certain things. I don't know. You still have to be quite careful when it's just one individual. So generalizability is potentially an issue. Okay, so we've got a case study. We don't want to just leave it with case studies. Please tell me a piece of research evidence that shows us there is a difference in episodic and semantic memory. Yeah, there's no way that Clive Waring is a fraud. Who would decide to live their life like that over such a long period of time? And he had such a good life as well beforehand. He was on fire with his conducting career. Okay, so you guys are going with KF. I can kind of see where you're going with that. I don't really want to do multiple case studies. I want a research study. So yeah, Alima's got it right. Unknown One's got it right. We're going to go for Torving for this. I actually had to fix my one of this. I actually put fMRI. That's terrible. Though it was a PET scan. You guys were right. It is a PET scan. What are we finding here? So I know sometimes this is written a bit complexly, but this is as simple as I can put it. So we're giving brain scans, PET scans of people while we're trying to do tasks. These tasks are either episodic in nature or semantic in nature. And we're seeing increased activity in the right prefrontal cortex for episodic and left prefrontal cortex for semantic. So because we see different parts of the brain light up when doing different tasks, it suggests different brain regions, different processes, different pathways, which suggests they are separate. So then we can start talking about, how this is backing up the idiographic casework, and you can dive into positives about the objectivity of this research. I'll just give one last critical evaluation here. Types of long-term memory may not be truly distinct. So we've got episodic and semantic memories are both declarative. You can both talk about both of them. That's a very close similarity. Maybe right, it did use a gold tracer. Also, episodic becomes semantic over time. So there's definitely a very strong connection there, a link. And the one that I think is really interesting is automatic language. So right now I'm doing automatic language. I'm not thinking too hard about what I'm about to say. I'm just kind of open my mouth and correct information seems to be coming out. So this kind of it is a procedural skill to just keep talking. If I had to think about every single word, it just wouldn't flow at all. If it does. So we've got this link between semantic knowledge that I'm delivering to you right now, and the procedural skill of delivering automatic language. So maybe they're not as distinct as they are argued to be. Very slight flex. Amount of ums, I say. This is that you have to put up with me having lots of ums if you're going to watch me live. Okay, let's go for the working memory model. We'll do this one, and then we'll take a 10-minute break. So we've got Baddeley and Hitch. Those of you writing it down, you can start straight away. Baddeley and Hitch, a theoretical cognitive model, again, of information processing that replaces the short-term memory store in the multi-store model. The working memory model is an active processor, not passive. So you write that down. We can talk about the difference there. Short-term memory store is literally just a box that just holds information. We're just talking about an active processor where you've got information moving through the system and doing different tasks and working on information. That's the difference between active and passive. You're watching my videos right now and the live stream. Wow, that's a little bit of an overkill. You can only do so much, guys. Don't stretch yourselves out too much. Okay, so yeah, what we are going to be talking about here, what is the different sections, what are the different elements of it? So we've got Polly and Yasmin and a few other people. Central executive, phonological loop, visual spatial sketchpad, episodic buffer. Give me the central executive then. Tell me what's going on with the central executive. You can get study leave. Wow. Is it good to know all the research methods we're going to paper one tomorrow? Yeah. If I decided to do this like a few weeks before I decided to do it, I would have done the research methods posters before paper one. I just physically couldn't with the time of my life. So, Temi, yeah, you should know all of research methods we're going to paper one. Last year, there were loads of questions on stats, like early on in paper one. So you got to know it all. So I'd go over it if you haven't already. Maybe do some past papers. And as I've harped on a bunch of times, I've got loads of past papers walkthroughs. There are not completed research methods posters of the Patreon. I'm making the posters as I deliver them. I was up this morning finishing this one off. I only finished it at like 10 a.m. So I will... I'll try. It's going to be difficult for me even to make them, to be honest, in the time that's available. I'll definitely do approaches. I'll definitely do bio. I'm going to try my best to get as much as research methods done as possible. But it's 2 pages, so I don't know. I'm probably going to spend the rest of tonight on the Discord, chatting away while making the research methods poster. That's my plan for the rest of today. Okay, so we have got central executive, head of the model, receives sense impressions, controls attention, and filters info before passing on to the subsystems. A limited capacity, 4 items, and capable of dealing with only one strand of information at a time. So if asked directly about central executive, that's what we can put in. A few different points there. Input about presumably about active process in the last sentence. I explained about. I'll just say it again. So the short-term memory store, it literally just holds information according to the model. Information moves in and out of the different stores. This is a replacement for the short-term memory store, and there's multiple different subsystems in there. So what we've got is information moving around the model and being worked on. So the phonological loop does work, the visual spatial system does work, the episodic buffer does work, and they're integrated. So it's active in the way that information is moving around the working memory model, whereas it is literally just held, apparently, by the short-term memory store. Okay, let's go, everyone. Phonological loop. Tell me as much as you can about the phonological loop. We'll get to the episodic buffer in a second, Yeetabix. Hold on. I'll give you some things that you can say. It's auditory. Yeah, it's auditory. Auditory store, articulatory process. There you go. You said something I really wanted to see. 2 seconds worth of speech capacity. Okay, let me reveal what I've got. So phonological loop processes sound information, acoustic coding, contains primary acoustic store, the inner ear, storing words recently heard, an articulatory process, an inner voice, or otherwise subvocal repetition. Now I've just managed to fit in just their capacity 2 seconds, and that sounds a little bit strange because you're like, oh, well, 2 seconds is a time, so wouldn't that be duration? It's not. It is capacity. According to research that we're going to look at in the evaluations, where I do go into more detail, you've got this like little tape in your mind that's holding on to the words that you've just heard. And instead of being able to hold on to a certain number of words, as suggested by the short-term memory store, it's able to hold on to about as much information that can be spoken in 2 seconds. And yeah, we're going to talk about the word length effect in the evaluations to support that. So you need to know about features of the model when it comes to like coding capacity. I would have that ready to go if you want to talk about the capacity of the working memory model in general, because we can pick up on one thing. We're not going to get asked about like individual elements and go, well, what's the capacity of this? At least I really don't hope so. I really hope not. But because of the way the spec is written, you can be asked about a coding capacity duration of any part of the multi-store model, but that's not a question that should appear for the working memory model. Okay, let's move on. I think we're good. Visual Spatial Sketchpad. Okay, for one, perception of objects in 3D space, visual and spatial tasks, visual and spatial information. In the scribe holds 3 to 4 items. Okay, 3 to 4 item capacity. Okay, we're good. I'll explain this a little bit because I think this can get confusing. So it processes and encodes visual and spatial information. So 2 elements there. Like, what's the difference between those? So we've got the visual cache. So this as a passive store of form and color. So if you are just saying like, what is like, I don't know, we've got a pen around here. Like got a highlighter here. You close your eyes, then you can kind of visualize it and imagine the shape of it. And you can also like imagine the color of it, but it's not going to change. It's just going to be kind of solid in your mind. The inner eye, which says it's an active store of relationships in 3D space. Some of you guys are probably driving now, like, or learning to drive, and you can look in your side mirror, and you can see a car kind of coming up on the side, and you can look back again. And you don't need to look back in order for your mind to kind of update its location in 3D space. You're constantly going, well, it was going at that speed, so now it'll be a little closer, and now it's about to pass me, without looking back. So yeah, that's why it means an active. It's being updated, whereas the store form color would just be passive. Yeah, no driving and texting for many reasons, mostly because of the overwhelming. You'd overwhelm the visual spatial sketchpad. Oh, sorry, I'm swag. Well, on the plus side, I failed my task like 3 times. You'll get through it eventually. Well done, Kitty, for passing yours. Okay. Let's go. Episodic buffer, everyone. Episodic buffer. Can you get still full marks about mentioning the visual cache NRI octet process? Yeah, you could. I mean, we're looking here, you get an essay on the working memory model itself. We want 6 marks worth of information. So we do want things to say. But, what you do say is kind of up to you. So we can go depth or breadth. We can say about things in a lot of detail, or we can say about things, quite a few things. Okay, added in 2000, integrates all information, links long-term memory, time sequencing. Yeah, I didn't put time sequencing on here, but maybe I should have done. It's episodic, isn't it? Yeah. I might edit this a little bit and put time sequencing on it. Okay. But there's other things that I have put on there that maybe we haven't quite picked up on. So added in 2000. So a general store to hold and combine information from subsystems of long-term memory. So the main element here is like the combining bit is what I want you to pick up on. We've got an element where the previous model, when it said the phonological loop and the visual spatial sketchpad as separate processes, it could explain tasks where we just use the phonological loop and just use the visual spatial sketchpad as separate tasks. But there are some tasks that we need to do which combine auditory and visual tasks. And there's some experiments and tested that was possible, and the working memory model just couldn't really explain it as it was. So that's why Baddeley updated it in 2000. Is this combination of information from the other units that made it necessary to create. I think the evaluation really is a lack of clarity around the central executive that we would talk about. How long will this live go on for? Once we've finished these evaluations, I'm going to take a 10-minute break and then probably another hour after that. So probably about 2 hours in full. So, let's talk about how do we know that the phonological loop, a research study that shows the phonological loop and the visual spatial sketchpad are separate. This live will be up until the end of paper 1. So yeah, you can watch it all the way through the night and in the morning if you want. It's the other 3 that I've taken down and put in the Patreon playlist. Yeah, I'm going to cover paper 3 topics. Definitely issues and debates. Definitely schizophrenia. And then I may just leave it for my Discord to vote on which are the ones I do. Yeah, dual task performance by Baddeley. Let's go for some details. So Baddeley participants were asked to do 2 visual tasks. So tracking a moving light was one of them, and describing the angles of the letter F. So we're visualizing something in our mind's eye as well as following something physically. Or we had to do a visual and a verbal task. Now, what we're finding is the performance is better when we're using 2 tasks, but they are using different processing. This means that they can work independently of each other, so suggesting that they are separate processes if we can do them independently. It also is suggesting that the phonological loop in the visual spatial sketchpad can be overwhelmed. Okay. Let's go then for KF. You guys wanted to give me KF a lot. How does KF support the concept of the working memory model? Yeah, Baddeley did a lot of stuff. I actually once did like a 3-hour Zoom chat with Baddeley. It was great. When I made my memory stuff, I was like, I need to talk to the guy. He was very kind to do it for me. Okay, yeah. Yeah, he's alive. He's still going. He's still teaching. Well, he was teaching 3 years ago when I did it. You think he's in York, maybe? Okay, so this is Shellis and Warrington, KF, brain damage then. So we want to mention that. And I tried to summarize this in one sentence. He had difficulties with his verbal short-term memory, but not visual. And shows different processes use different brain regions. That's a very shortened version. But if we can see that someone's got difficulties with one element of the visual space of the working memory model, but not the other, and it's due to brain damage, then would suggest that the parts that are damaged are the ones that are responsible for one element of the visual of the working memory model, suggesting they're separate. Okay. Let's go for there's a researcher called Parabakaran, I think is about the way of saying it. It was fMRI studies. Can anyone give you some details on that? Okay, some of you no idea. Now, the reason I've got this researcher is because I wanted to have a piece of research that was explicitly about the episodic buffer. So, what I've got, and I'll just explain it for you straight off. And don't worry if you haven't got it, but I should say I wanted to have this one. So, your participants scanned an fMRI, and then they're completing tasks either with an integrated visual and verbal info or separate visual and verbal info. So scanning the brain, and then when we're seeing these different types of tasks, when we're doing this integrated tasks, we're seeing an area of the prefrontal cortex that was only active when we've got those integrated tasks. Now, what this is suggesting is the episodic buffer is real and that it's in that location. It's a suggestion, though. It's an assumption, might not be true, but we are seeing those areas of the brain light up during those integrated tasks. Yeah, in equal amounts of visual spatial info while being fMRI scanned. Okay. And then let's go. Mentioned already the word length effect. Please explain to me what we mean by the word length effect and give me an indication of the talking about the research basically. What is word length effect? I did psychopathology a couple of days ago. Okay, so what we've got. Ooh, I have two things appeared there. Badly did the word length effect. Participants could recall more monosyllabic words, so they're short words, than polysyllabic words. So that goes against the short-term memory concept, where it's just number of things. This suggests that the phonological loop's capacity is not the number of items, but how much can be said in 2 seconds. So that's the word length effect. Explained a little better than what I did in the AO1, but I knew I was going to repeat it, so that's done. Let's go. The working memory model has been influential. What do I mean when I say that? What do I mean when I say the working memory model has been influential? Yeah, I mean, I didn't say practical applications. I can see where you're going with this. So we're talking about explains dyslexia, for visual processing, good for learning difficulties. I see that, but actually, what I was after was something a little different. We're talking about the difference between the working memory model and short-term memory in the MSM. Basically, everyone was accepting the multi-store model of memory until the working memory model came along and completely displaced that short-term memory store explanation. So everybody moved over, and generally, if you're an active practicing psychologist in this area now, you don't use the word short-term memory anymore. You use the term working memory. Raw, I think you probably could. Yeah, they're about 2 to 3 hours long, so you could get through all of the paper one live streams today. Okay. Let's go for some criticisms, guys. Just give me all of them in one go. I'll reveal them all and talk them through. Just out of interest, how long of a break do people want? I was going to go 10 minutes, but I'm happy to do more. I think sometimes people complain that it's not longer break. All right. The consensus seems to be 15, so we'll go 15 minutes. Yeah, we've done all the other ones, Rose. We've done all the other paper one ones. I definitely need a break though. Um, okay, here's them all revealed. Let me run through them. Again, I've used the memory studies, often use artificial tasks evaluation. I think it's really useful both for the working memory model and the multi-store model. We've talked about some really um, artificial lab studies in here. We might as well use the same evaluation. But remember what I said when talking about the multi-store model. Let's link these studies, let's link this generic evaluation to the studies that we've talked about. You know, tracking moving lights or describing the angles of a letter F is just a weird thing to do. So are we really testing real memory there? Some of you have put Polarix, yeah, that's fine. Some of you have put about the episode Butler being criticised, but really the central executive kind of seems a little bit weird and not having a full explanation of its function rather than just moving information around. Like, does it really need to be there? And then the element that we could also use for the multi-store model, there's a cognitive explanation. So we're using inferences. We're seeing behavior and we're making assumptions about the underlying nature of those behavior. These theoretical models, they don't exist physically. Like, we don't have these little boxes in our mind. Maybe mental systems represent them. But yeah, we have to make assumptions. So to make an assumption without direct observation is somewhat unscientific. Yeah, the Discord's just for patrons, unfortunately. Usually the live streams that I did last year were just for patrons, but I decided to do it for everyone on YouTube because I like the idea of more people getting to see them. Okay. So we are good. We are halfway through, everyone. So I think we need to take a break, and I will set it for 15 minutes. And yeah, so you can have a drink, grab a snack to rest your hands, or catch up with the notes. It's up to you. So yeah, see you guys in 15 minutes. Okay, so I've edited the breakout of this video. Just a quick reminder that if you've made it this far, to subscribe to my channel. It would mean a lot, especially being so close to 100k. And if you want the digital version of this poster, please grab it on my website or the entire revision book on Amazon. Let's get back to revision. Okay, everyone, welcome back. Hope you had a good break. And let's get started with the second half with explanations for forgetting. Right. Our first explanation is going to be interference. So if someone could just shout out to me, what does it mean for something to be interference? Memory distorted. We've also got someone saying proactive and retroactive. So we got, yeah, a few words we can use: distort, block, confused, disrupt. All basically mean the same thing. So we have different pieces of information become confused in memory. Is probably the simplest way. Let's do proactive and retroactive. Then tell me which way around it goes. I do not have time to talk to you about how to draw a histogram. Sorry, got to keep it on memory. Okay, Yeah, I think we're good on that from everyone. Proactive interference is older memories disrupting newer memories. Retroactive interference, newer memory disrupting an older memory. Let's go on to our next bit. When is it more likely for interference to happen and why? There's two things we can talk about. Okay, the first one in there to talk about similar information. That's good. There is one other reason, and I should get to the first. So forgetting is due to interference. It's more likely when the two memories are similar. This is due to, and we didn't have the term. I don't think anyone gave me the term. Yeah, response competition is the term when we've got two similar memories competing to be the one recalled. We've got some terms here, though, for the next bit, which is less likely to have interference if there's a gap between learning. So we've got time sensitivity. So there's our AO1 for an essay on interference. Let's go for a piece of research, please, on retroactive interference. Give me a retroactive interference study. Okay, and Ashton there straight away. Smith. Can anyone tell me what happened in Smith? Okay, no, I'm not talking about the root players one. I know there is one for root players. It's not one I cover, but I've read it around and it seems absolutely fine if you use that one instead. I use the Smith one. So yeah, we've got 211 to 79-year-olds. We've got a map of an old school, their old school without the street name. So obviously you've got a big range there and how long it's been since they were out of the school. And fundamentally, what we find is if you're older, then obviously you've probably moved a few more times. So you had to encode a new street and all the streets around it. So if you've moved 5 or 6 times, you would have some issues trying to remember a past location and streets around it if you had to remember more streets. So the more times moved, the fewer names recalled. So I guess they controlled there for like the age of the participant. So maybe you're 79 and you've only lived on 2 streets, whereas maybe you're 79 you lived on 10 streets. That would kind of balance out. Just fundamentally, the more times moved, the fewer names recalled. Okay, let's go for a research study. This is a little bit more complex on proactive interference. Proactive interference, everyone. Yeah, I think that's good. Yeah, it is a real life application of retroactive interference. I suppose a downside was it's kind of correlational. Because it's not an experiment, is it? Whereas this next one is an experiment. Yeah, there's a few. Underwood did a whole bunch of studies in this area, so some of you will have like different Underwoods. But yeah, Underwood needed to chill on research in this area. Okay, so I'll try and explaining it. So participants are given a list of 10 word pairs, and they're going to give a new list every 48 hours. So a new list, new list, new list, new list, new list. So obviously, how well do you remember the first list? How well do you remember the second list? Eventually, what we're finding is giving a new list and having to recall it again 48 hours later, we're getting worse at this skill. You'd almost maybe expect people to get better, but actually people are getting worse. So the correct recall of new lists is decreasing proportional to the number of old lists that have been learned. Because clearly what's happening here is older lists are then coming forward and interfering with our recall of the newer list. So yeah, if you've got a different one, that's fine. You can go with that. I'll give you a negative of this straight off. We're only with interference explaining forgetting when the information is similar and learn close in time because we've got that response competition and time sensitivity. So really, interference isn't explaining most forgetting because, often we don't learn things close in time and we're not competing with different pieces of information. Sometimes I just want to know where my keys are. Okay, let's go with cue-dependent forgetting. Can someone give me a very brief definition of what cue-dependent forgetting actually means? Forgetting due to lack of cues ain't wrong. I just want a little more detail. A little more detail. Okay, we got Kira there coming in with lack of encoding specificity principle. Amy as well. Okay. So cue dependent forgetting. So the information is in long-term memory, but forgetting is due to the absence of cues encoded at the same time. Encoding specificity. I cannot say that word ever. Principle. Anyway, you can read it. So I've got three for you. Probably you might have only learnt two, but I'll cover those first, and then I've got a third one that's not always covered. What is a context-dependent cue, everybody? What is a context-dependent cue? Okay, yeah, environmental factors, forgetting is useful, actually, so cues, setting. Okay, we're good. We're good with that. So context-dependent cues, aspects of external environment, so sight, sound, smells. So being in a different place inhibits recall. So remember, we're talking here about forgetting, not memory. So just shape your answers around, what's stopping us from recalling. So how do we explain the forgetting? So being in a different place inhibits recall. Let's do the same, please. But let's do it for state-dependent cues, please. What does state-dependent cues mean? Internal factors we've got. Someone just writing drunk. Fair enough. Okay, we're good. We're good. So state-dependent cues, aspects of the internal environment, so emotions, drugs, state of arousal. So being in a different state would inhibit recall. Does anyone know what the last one is? What is the other cue that could influence forgetting? Yeah, Polly coming in with category, Hosanna coming in with category, Ronnie coming with category. Some of you not sure. Don't worry if you haven't done this. You might not want to bother with it because I'm not trying to get you to learn new stuff right now, but I do want to summarize things for people who know it. So a category dependent cue. So we would have labels stored with items. So let's say, for example, we were word lists, which we'll come to, and the words were all about fruit. The phrase fruit would be a cue, would be a trigger to remember. Sometimes I'll in class ask people a question about maybe a piece of research, and the students are like, oh, I can't remember. Can you give me a clue? And I'll be like, oh, the researcher's name begins with B, and then they were like, oh, it's Badley study. So that's an organizational a category cue. So yeah, there's enough to talk about your AO1 cue dependent forgetting with just the other two. So don't worry if you don't know it. But if you know it, you know it. Let's go then. I'm going to give you a piece of research on each of the different types of cue. So of course, as some people have put into the chat already, what is the context dependent cue research? Very memorable. Yeah, bye waiting there with the pre-written Evaluation ready to go. Good work. Deep sea divers learn on land, recall on land or sea, and vice versa. Recall is better when learning and recalling in the same environment. Is what I'm going with. You know what? I think this is like a real. You could develop this into a practical application thing. This is a safety issue, isn't it? Like diving is incredibly dangerous. So you want to do everything you possibly can to try and make sure that people are safe while doing it. So if you know there's a small difference between people's ability to recall safety instructions, if you taught them on land or underwater, then you're going to make sure you teach people underwater. Maybe you go to like a swimming pool or something for your initial safety training. Don't do your safety training in a classroom. So yeah. Go on then, give me state, please, everyone. Give me state. I did not know that Carter and Cassidy one about antihistamines, Izzy. That's very interesting. Viking goal, Overton drunk versus sober, memory, good. I mean, that's a great point, Polaris, just in general. Ethical issues do not cause a lack of validity. Don't use ethics for a validity point. Always a good thing to shout out. Okay, I didn't know so many people did an antihistamines one. I thought the drunk one was so fun that everyone would use it. But okay. Overton found recall was better when the same state as when info was learned, so either drunk or sober, not the opposite state. But yeah, wow. Maybe people don't want to talk about alcohol in class. I don't know. Okay, let's go. Does anybody know the category dependent research study? How are we going to show the category dependent is working? Is true? Okay, Hosanna getting in there with a fully written out one, nice and quickly. So Torbjörn and Paulson, this takes a little bit to explain. So they're asked to learn 48 words. So these words are either combined or just straight out, just listed, and people are allowed to do free recall, or they were combined into categories. If they were combined into categories, the categories could be used as cues, and let me just reveal it. And if they were in categories, then the recall was higher, so the categories acted as cues. Got some percentages there: 40% uncued, 6% cued. That's good to know. Excellent. So I have two kind of more generic evaluations. I'll say the first one is interference and cue theory, because we can. I've got two that can work for both. Interference and cue theory can only really explain temporary forgetting, not permanent forgetting. So we can say they're not complete explanations. But then I would like you to tell me what the practical applications are for each of them. There's a practical application for interference. There's a practical application for cue-dependent forgetting. I wonder if you've got something for me. Okay, is he going in there with the revision? There's probably two different things you can say for revision on both sides of it. And then we've got Ashton with the cognitive interview and Hosanna with the cognitive interview. Let me reveal it and then walk you through it. So practical applications, revision strategies. So one thing we might want to do is we might want to space stimulus. Because of time sensitivity for explanations of forgetting interference, we might want to space out our similar revision. Okay. We could also talk about revision in the context of context-dependent cues. Visualizing yourself back in a space where you did the work does help recall. But we could talk about context, a bit better, call about context reinstatement as part of the cognitive interview. So yeah, that is everything I want to tell you about explanations for forgetting. Our next section, and we're going to got a lot to say in this next section, is factors affecting the accuracy of eyewitness testimony. Before we dive into some of the terminologies asked for here, I would like for you to talk to me about what does reconstructive memory mean? What does it mean to say memory is reconstructive? No breaks now until we finish. It's probably only going to be another 40 minutes or so. So Akira, memory's not a tape record. Okay, yeah, that's what we're going to talk about in this section. But right now, what does reconstructive memory mean? Polly coming in with a little bit more detail there. Memory is not factual recall. It's influenced by schemas and can cause confabulations. So not everyone necessarily goes into detail about reconstructed memory on this part, but it's a kind of the fundamental backstory about the fact that eyewitness testimony can be affected, because it's arguing that memory is not perfect. So things can influence it, and then we're going to go into what can influence it. So yeah, Polaris Bartlett is the person who talks about this. It's schema based. So let's go on to what is, and I'll reveal that because I've said it. Because of memory is recreated when recalled, so it's not accurate, uses errors. We've got a word there, confabulations, and we're influenced by schemas. So one thing that can influence our schemas, it seems, is leading questions. So what is a leading questions, and why does the memory change as a result of the leading questions? There's two potential reasons. What's a leading question? And why does it change? Rose, we're not doing exam questions in these streams. It's just a creation of this poster. I just do exam questions separately. Okay, a question that implies a certain answer. And then we've also got Polly and Zana saying, yeah, response bias or substitution bias. So it's important to have enough to say. But if we're talking about what a leading question is, we're going to say, well, it's not enough to just say it just something that implies a certain answer. What else are we going to say? So there's two arguments about how a leading question says. So if you said, did you see the knife? That is implying that there was a knife to see. Now, what might happen is an actual change. Your memory itself could be twisted to now include a knife when you think about your memory. There's a substitution bias. Or it could just be that you feel like under pressure to agree, like a kind of a conformity thing. So you're under emotional pressure, and that's a response bias. You feel pushed into saying that there was a knife. So, we can kind of dig into that a little bit, even maybe evaluating the next study, which is Loftus and Palmer, to say, well, what's going on here? Is it a substitution bias, or are people feeling like under emotional pressure to give a certain answer? So let's go with, give me as short but as concise a definition of Loftus and Palmer's study as you can. Tell me some things. I think exam questions are useful to do at this point. But what I would do is doing exam questions. I wouldn't actually spend 20 minutes writing an essay at this point, because you're not going to be able to cover much content. I would look through past papers and I would bullet point how you'd answer it, and then I'd look at the mark scheme and see if your bullet points matches the mark scheme, and then move on. And just do that at a really high tempo. And then if you find that you get to a question that you've absolutely done awful in, that's when you do a deep dive. Don't just write an essay on something that you already know the answer to. Focus on the stuff that you don't know so well. Yeah, we got a bunch of terminologies there. 9 miles per hour difference. I wouldn't remember the speeds for each of them. Maybe the top and the lowest, and yeah, that's kind of it. Okay. So we've got Loftus and Palmer. Participants watched a clip of a car crash and asked how fast the cars were going when they blank. With the verb changed, smashed, collided, bumped, hit, and contacted are our verbs. And we found the more extreme the verb, the faster the mile per hour. Contacted 31.8 and smashed 40.8. So that's it. Let's go into. We've got some generic evaluations to evaluate all of these areas. But let's go into post-event discussion. What is post-event discussion? Can somebody lay that out for me, or for everyone lay that out for me? Yeah, I didn't go into a care of the second version of the Loftus study where they were asked later on if they saw glass, and they said they did, would suggest it was a substitution bias rather than response bias because it was less emotional pressure to have a memory change. But you can go into that. Okay, we got some good answers from the chat. Okay, let's see what I've got. You guys have written a lot similar. So talking about an event afterwards, memory conformity is a great key term to use. Well done for using that. And we already get some people talking about the study there. So post-event discussion, the recall of events by one witness can alter the accuracy of another witness. So what we're going to say here is this can be due to memory conformity. Witnesses going along with another account for social approval. Or, like if we're talking about conformity here, we're aware of multiple types of conformity. It could be normative social influence, so people just kind of go, I'll just go along with it. Honestly, though, I mean, there's probably some informational social influence going on. Like if you're in a extreme situation, like, I don't know, you see a fight and someone get hurt, you might be confused about what just happened. It can be over very, very quickly. So you could be looking for information to the people around you, going, "Oh, what just happened? Oh, did you see something?" So yeah, I would say potentially informational social influence is going on as well as normative here. And you possibly even say that maybe it's more normative because it's more informational because that is a permanent change and people actually believe it. So maybe. Yeah, so we've already had a bunch of people talking about the study, so I'll go straight into it. That is Gabbett. So we get pairs of people to watch different videos of the same crime, so different angles. When the pairs could discuss what they'd seen, 71% included information that wasn't in their video as saying that they'd seen it. Obviously, 0% said when they couldn't see, we didn't get to talk. So that's a pretty good evidence that memory conformity happens. What we can also add on to this is the Bodner finding that if you warn people that memory conformity is an issue, that post-event discussion is an issue, then people become resistant to it. They're able to kind of separate off their own memories to somebody else's. So that's a good practical application to police investigations. Is if there's a bunch of witnesses, you might go and speak to people. Listen, guys, don't talk to each other about what you've just seen until you've spoken to us. If you do speak about it, though, just be aware that there could be an issue with memory conformity, and that warning helps. So that's a nice little development there. Is it your teacher did it in your class? That sounds really interesting. I wonder where. Okay, so a criticism for both Loftus and Palmer and Gabbett, please. The research behind it. What is a criticism? Okay, note with sense of urgency we got there. Okay. Let me reveal this. So what I've put down, which is linking to our next point, and we might then talk about anxiety. Lab-based studies without anxiety can be argued to have low validity when applied to eyewitness testimony, as in the real world, violent crimes tends to have quite a lot of anxiety involved. Alfie just said you just subscribed to the Patreon. Thank you very much for that. That's kind of you. But where can you find the exam walkthroughs for after? I'll just put that into the chat. There you go. Okay. Next up, we have anxiety, everyone. What is anxiety and how is it meant to affect recall? Please type that into the chat and let's have a see what you got. Yeah, lack of real consequences is probably an evaluation that we can use for all of these pieces of research. It's not what I put down, but yeah, if I had space, I probably would put it down. Yerkes-Dodson law we got there. Memory can be enhanced or reduced. Feelings of worry and distress is anxiety. Yeah, and we've got the concept of weapons focus as well. Quite a lot we can touch on here for anxiety. I might just reveal both of them because you talked about both of them in the chat. So anxiety, what is it? We define it as a state of mental arousal. So in that we mean extreme concern, tension, maybe a high heart rate as well. So we've got an argument. We've got conflicting arguments, haven't we? High anxiety can reduce recall due to the weapons focus effect. We focus on the weapon rather than the face. Also, we got that issue of, well, actually, we need anxiety in order to focus. So we actually might increase recall due to alertness, and intense emotions also help us with memory encoding. We talked about episodic memory and the strength of the episodic memory being linked to emotions felt at the time. Well, if you're highly anxious, that might help your memory. Most of the time, you'll have a long day, like 12 hours in a day. How much of that do you actually remember? Something extreme happens that makes you very anxious. You're probably going to be remembering that quite well. So we have these two conflicting arguments about anxiety. You can lay that out first and then say, well, there is a potential explanation for this. And this is the Yerkes-Dodson law, where we have low recall when there's very low anxiety because we're not paying attention. As anxiety increases, we're now paying attention. And now we're going to start to recall what we're seeing. But the anxiety is so high, then we're freaking out. We're having a panic response. And then our ability to focus on what's going on around us decreases. I reckon we've got another 20 minutes of this before we finished off. All right. So the positive piece of research, please, everyone. The Johnston and Scott study. Tell me what happened and tell me how that has supported the idea of anxiety. Okay, pen and knife. Yep. High anxiety condition, low anxiety condition. Greece as well. 33 versus 49. Excellent. Well, really, I'm sure that's why you're here, to kind of look at this again. Let me go through it with you then. I think we got some good answers in the chat there. Johnson Scott's participants overheard 1, a normal conversation. Man walks out of the room with greasy hands holding a pen. Or 2, a hostile conversation. He also had breaking glass and movement of furniture. The man walks out with a bloody knife. So that's our setup. Obviously, yeah, this was people didn't expect this to happen. They didn't sign up for it. What they found was from photos, 49% of people could identify the man with a pen and 33% with the knife. So this is a support of the idea of the weapons focus effect. Let's have a criticism there. There is a piece of research, and some of you have mentioned Yuval and Kutchel, and also started talking about it a little bit there. I don't know how much I can pick up, so maybe type some things in there to just remind the chat about the Yuval and Kutchel study. Yeah, we could potentially talk about the ethics of this research, but remember, ethics doesn't mean validity. Ethics and pickle. Johnson and Scott, participants reviewed they were attending a study of sodium ion characteristics. Yeah. There's something, didn't know if something was going to go on. Okay. There's not necessarily. Oh, yeah. No, I have heard of the raw chicken variation because it was a strange object rather than just a pen. Cool. Yuval and Kutchel interviewed 13 witnesses 4 months after the deadly shooting. The closest to the shooter, most drastic producer, most accurate eyewitness testimony against the idea of the Yerkes-Dodson law is correct. So yeah, 4 months, 13 witnesses. Yeah, countering Yerkes-Dodson. Good. Okay, we now have some more generic evaluations. Give me some more generic evaluations to kind of fill up this essay. If we had a question either focusing on one of these things or in general factors affecting the accuracy of eyewitness testimony. Ra, if you can look at the pinned post on my Patreon, it tells you how to join it and how to access all the resources. You basically go to settings, linked apps, and then click on Discord, and it should take you straight through, and it should also assign you your label. If you have a problem with it, just message me through Patreon, and I'll be able to send you a link. Okay. Individual differences affecting anxiety. That's a good one. It's not one I was going to go through. The London Dungeon. I have not heard of that as an evaluation. Implications for the justice system is really good. Well, not something I'm going to use, but true. Artificial task is something I'm going to do. Okay, let me reveal my ones. There's some the same. You guys have come up with some interesting and different ones. So research that causes high levels of anxiety can break ethical guidelines around protection from harm, informed consent. So yeah, doesn't necessarily say that it's like valid or not, but still, a good point to make. This is literally about causing anxiety. Our general ones, research and eyewitness testimony has had real-life applications such as development of the cognitive interview. This reduces the effect of schemas on the accuracy of recall. So the understanding how leading questions can influence an eyewitness is used practically. We've also got all of these really, apart from the Yuval and Kutchel study, are lab studies. So people are coming in already primed that something weird's going to go on, even if you're not telling them explicitly what the aim of the study is. So they can pick up on the language used and maybe feel pressure to give a response they think will help with the research, which is linked to that kind of potential for response bias in the Loftus and Palmer study. Okay. And if you are put in a pair to talk about the video that you've seen with someone else, maybe you feel like you should be picking up on some of the things you've heard, because why else would you have been sat with someone who was talking about the study? So yeah, potential issue there. Okay, well, we are on our final section. This one section won't take too long because it's quite short. Improving the accuracy of eyewitness testimony. I'll just reveal the first little bit of text here, which is eyewitness testimony is inaccurate due to factors including anxiety, leading questions, and post-event contamination. So we know that is an issue, so we need to improve it. What, everybody, is the standard interview? Someone tell me what the standard interview is before we go into the cognitive. Standard interview done by police officers, normal police interview. Any details about the standard interview then? Okay. Closed questions, a bunch of closed questions. That's good. Start. So, standard interview. Fisher found that police in Florida asked quick, direct, and closed questions. Police led the conversation, so witnesses couldn't talk freely and were frequently interrupted. So, we can lay out that's the starting point of the counter to the cognitive interview. So, what we're asked is how to improve that. So, suggested by Fisher and Gieselman, suggested the cognitive interview as an improvement with 4 factors. And Mayer has already got in there with reinstate context, reverse order, explain everything, change perspective. Yasmin got in there as well, and Yossi did too. Okay, let's define these a little bit more. What is context reinstatement, everyone? So, we're going to try and ask what context reinstatement is. Yeah, mentally returning from the crime scene from Polarics. So, weather. And then we got Ava there coming in with context cues as well. Possibly, yeah. And we've got Susanna there talking about emotional state. Oh, I didn't want to reveal that just yet. Let's go report everything, please. What does it mean to say report everything? I think we've got enough there about context reinstatement. Yeah, so we're focusing on things to be irrelevant. So the argument here really is it's up to the police really to decide if the information is irrelevant or not. The witness themselves don't have a background in investigating, so make assumptions about what's relevant and not relevant. So if we just say everything, then the officer can make the decision. So recall from a changed perspective. What is going on in recall from a changed perspective? Yeah, we got Yoshi going in there as well. And in fact, you are right. Both of these aspects are to disrupt the influence of schema. We have assumptions about what must have happened. There was a violent attack, and this person involved, and you just make assumptions about who did what. To try and imagine it from someone else's perspective is just a way of breaking down those schemas, and recalling reverse order as well as assumptions. So yeah, useful. I will reveal these now. So recall from a changed perspective. Consider the viewpoint of other witnesses, perpetrator to disrupt schema. Recall in reverse order. Switch to a different timeline. So from the end to the start. And you can check accuracy and challenge expectations there. So challenge schemas again. It's good to have like a little bit extra to talk about for each of these things because the area one's quite short. Once you've said what the cognitive interview is and the 4 things, you might find it's quite a small paragraph. There's a 16 marker. Like we might want to dive into like why are these useful? These 4 elements before getting into the evaluation. So the original Fisher evaluation, please. What did Fisher do to support his own idea? Okay, yeah. Is it compared the effectiveness of the 2? Okay, we've not got many more bits of details there apart from Izzy's compared the effectiveness of the 2. Okay, I'll give you a little bit more. Okay, we've got someone there saying we've got some more info from the cognitive interview, which is correct. So Fisher's 7 detectives who were trained at the cognitive interview were compared to 9 using the standard interview. And we found cognitive interview detectives produced 47% more info in real interviews. than they did previously, and 63% more info than the detectors that were still using the standard interview technique. So, I mean, I don't think you really need both those percentages, to be honest with you. You can just compare it to the standard interview detectives and just be like, yeah, they produce more. So we got like they produce more than previously they did, but also because I think that's what that's arguing is like, oh, we didn't just pick like the best detectives in order and give them cognitive interview training, and then that's why they're overperforming. They actually still produce more than they did before they had it, because before that they were just using the standard interview themselves. So maybe I'll keep it in. Let's go. Yeah, I'm getting loads of emojis. I don't know why. No, they don't have that. Okay, we've got Konkin, everybody. We've got Konkin, which tells quite a complex story. So let's see where we're going with this. Yeah, what is the issue with the Konkin study? Yeah. Meta-analysis, some of you guys not unheard of this. It's kind of okay, but it's a very useful study because as a counter to Fisher, because it says a lot. I mean, I'd probably rather have Konkin than Fisher, to be honest with you. So this is a meta-analysis of 42 cognitive interview studies. So meta-analysis are great. We're looking at lots and lots of studies similar to Fisher. Overall, we've got 2,500 interviews included. So what we found is really interesting. We do have a significant increase in the amount of correct but also incorrect information. So that's interesting. So we are going to get more correct information, which might help us. Like, you might get the piece of information that actually leads you to solving the case. But we've also got all this extra incorrect information as well, which is just a little bit annoying. So actually, if we're talking about improving the accuracy of eyewitness testimony, which is like the actual like section, does the cognitive interview improve the accuracy? Well, actually, not really, because the accuracy rate, which is 85% for the cognitive interview, is basically the same as the standard interview, which is 82%. There's just more information. So actually, the amount of effort that the cognitive interview takes might actually be kind of limited practical value because of that extra incorrect errors. So I reckon the Konkin really should form the basis of your evaluative essay, because we can play both sides of it going, well, maybe it's good because of extra, but actually, does it improve accuracy? Maybe not. And it is a meta-analysis, and it's 42 studies, so a great evaluation to use. Okay, so let's go for some general evaluation, guys. We've got the two pieces of research there. Let's just go for what else we could talk about. Cool. Okay, arena expensive and training needs, so some components are more than others. Some people talking about Faye talking about children are egocentric, so they can't really change their perspective. It's led to development of the modified cognitive interview by Holiday, which is right. I'm going to talk about that. Yeah, there's someone calling on Mine and Bull, which is saying that some of them are more important than the others. Context-free statement required. I've not chosen that, but that's a good evaluation to use. I cut this down to just 5 because I couldn't think of a scenario in which you'd need more than 5. Okay, cost-benefit analysis as well. Okay, there's one thing that I've mentioned that you guys haven't put into the thing. Egocentric means that you see the world only from your own perspective. Cognitive interview is time-consuming. So it's time-consuming that it takes longer to do, but you've got to think, you've got to train officers to do the cognitive interview. It's a skill. So that's time that they're not training in other areas or not actually doing the policing work. So time and then extra time to conduct a cognitive interview. Obviously, you're paying these officers for their time as well. So if you're paying them to train the cognitive interview and you're paying them to do a cognitive interview which takes longer, it's cost and it's time. So that is a problem than just a standard interview. And then cognitive interview is not effective in improving the recognition of suspects and identity parades and from photographs. That's like one of the main things that you would want to do as part of eyewitness testimony. Well, cognitive interview isn't really got anything to do with identity parades. That's recognition memory. And the cognitive interview is not effective with young children as they're egocentric. As I mentioned, they can only imagine their own worldview. They can't put themselves in someone else's mind. So the recall from a changed perspective is definitely out. So Holiday created a modified cognitive interview adapted to development level. And that, everybody, is the poster completed. And that is all four paper one live streams completed. Yeah, we're done. Yeah, we've finished it. Oh, also very kind of you, Baba. It's good luck with your exam, and yeah, good luck to everybody else. You guys have been great. Thank you so much for getting involved in the chat. It'd be a lot boring if you guys didn't help me out. So good luck tomorrow. I hope it goes well, and I'll see you in a couple of days for an approaches live stream as well. Hopefully, I'm going to see you guys on there. Aiming for 7 o'clock on the 17th. I'll get started working on it now. This will stay up. This one will stay up on YouTube. I might actually keep this one up permanently, and just eventually just hide all the others. But this one will definitely be up all the way through till paper one. My name's Nick. 7 p.m. 7 p.m. Yeah, it'll definitely be the night. Yeah. Dowd, if you want to get the posters, then you have to get them on my Patreon because, yeah, I just do the lives for free on the internet, on YouTube. All right. Thanks very much, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. I will see you. I'll see you around. Bye. So I hope that revision video was really useful for you. Just a reminder, I'm going to be doing some more of these over the course of the year, so do subscribe if you haven't already. And of course, you can get this digital version over on my website. I'll see you in the next one.